Looks like we're live. All right, welcome back. This is training module number 3. Okay, so today we're going to be going through the 5 stages of grief, and as we go through life, we're going to experience loss. Now, this isn't just the loss of a loved one as in death. This can be a loss of a job, loss of our identity as we shift. Maybe we go from a 9 to 5 to being an entrepreneur. Trust me, that is a huge transition. So maybe we go from being married to divorced, or being single to in a relationship. There is a grieving process that we go through, even for small losses, okay? So this can be done on a small scale and a large scale. Obviously, if it's a smaller scale, it's easier to navigate these stages. These stages are not linear by any stretch of the imagination. We can bounce back and forth, but I am going to go over each of the 5 stages, talk a little bit about what is in each one of the stages. So, the first one is denial. It stands for don't even know I am lying. Okay? So we're unaware. We're unaware that this problem. We don't want to believe that this is true. We cannot accept the situation. We cannot accept the circumstances as they are. And so we're in denial. We're like, la, 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 la. I don't want to listen. I don't want to hear this. I can't handle this. You never want to try and rip somebody out of their denial. This is a protection mechanism. This is something that is important. We have to honor ourselves and other people when they are in this denial stage. And I remember a story that I learned years ago that I'm going to share here. It talked about a fight between the sun and the wind, and who was more powerful. And so when we think of denial, we're going to think of this particular story of the sun and the wind having a contest. And they were looking down, and there was a man walking along, and he had this coat on. And the sun and the wind bet each other who could get the guy to take off his coat first. So the wind said, I'll go first, and I know for sure that I can get this guy to take his cloak of denial off. And so the wind blew and blew as hard as it could, and it got faster and more violent as it blew, and it's stronger, and just tried to tear that cloak of denial off of the man. And the more that the wind blew, the harder the man hung onto his coat, trying to keep it on. And after a while, the wind couldn't get the guy to take his cloak of denial off. And so the sun said, okay, let me go. It's my turn now. So what the sun did is it did what the sun does. It shone. It added warmth and care and comfort, and just shone down on this man. And the man willingly took off his cloak of denial. So I want you to think of that when somebody is in this stage of denial. If you are in this stage of denial, you're going to want to give yourself more care, more compassion. You trying to beat yourself, going, I should do this, I should do that, or trying to do that to somebody else is even worse. Of trying to rip off that cloak of denial. Pay attention to when you're in that. Let that person be in that stage as long as they need to. It's a protection mechanism. Check in on them. Make sure that you are being aware of what it is that they're going through, and allow them the space to open up by just giving warmth and giving love. So see that as a cry for love, right? Okay, so number 2, the second stage. So when we come out of this stage of denial, of like, oh, I can't deal with this, usually the next stage is anger. So anger, like we talked about in module 2, is the first stage of fear. So imagine you're woken up and you're like, oh, this way of being, this identity, this life that I had before, the way things were, is no longer real. It's not possible. Whether it's a death of a loved one and you fully come to terms with they're not coming back, and you're upset and you're going to be angry about that. You might get frustrated. You might fight. You might rail at God as to why God did this to you, and it's not fair, and you see all of these other people that are able to have it so much easier than you, and it's okay to be in this stage of anger. What is not okay is not okay to harm yourself or to harm others, but recognize that you're in this first stage of fear. It's like being woken up and you're like, oh shit, this is not good. I can't handle this. I don't like this. This is terrible, right? So that is the second stage of the grieving process. We become aware of the finality of the situation, and that is terrifying. And so when that's terrifying, our first reaction is fight, right? So and if we stay in that long enough, we're going to progress through those 4 stages of fear, of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So second stage is anger. Okay. Third stage is bargaining. Had a brain cramp there on how to spell it. Spelling's not the best. I have other good attributes. Spelling is not my biggest one, but okay. So third stage, bargaining. So we've kind of simmered down. We're not so pissed off about things, and we're like, well, you know what? Maybe if I did this, or maybe if I did that, or maybe if this was different. So think of in terms of a breakup. Okay, so you broke up with your boyfriend, you broke up with your girlfriend, your spouse, whatever it is, and you're going back and forth in your own mind usually of, well, maybe if I had said this, or maybe if I hadn't have done that, maybe I could make a difference. And we go back and forth, and we're in this third stage of grief of like, well, maybe if I had said this and I should, woulda, shoulda, coulda is usually what ends up happening in that bargaining stage. It's like, I promise if you just, I'll do anything if you just come back. Or we might pray to God. It's like, you know, I promise God, I swear I won't do this ever again if you just allow this one thing to happen, right? So we end up in this bargaining stage, and it's a very frantic back and forth, foot on both sides. And again, these stages are not linear. We can go back and forth. We can go back and forth between anger, denial, bargaining, and jump back and forth, and that is okay. It's important to recognize what stage you're actually in and to know how to move through those kind of stages. So this is awareness of what those stages are so that we can start to help you progress through those. Okay. Next one. So, stage number 4, sadness. Okay. So, this stage is the point where we really feel sad, that we start to become aware that no amount of bargaining, no amount of anger, no amount of denying the situation is actually going to change it. And that can be pretty defeating, and we feel sad. We might feel depressed. You need a lot of care, a lot of support in this stage. So it's important to be aware of that when you're in this sadness stage, that you're also, even though it feels the worst, you're also just that much closer to that breakthrough, that you will get through to the other side. And so if you're in this stage of sadness where you are getting to that point where you realize that there was nothing that you could do that could actually change it, you're not really angry about it anymore, you're just sad, you feel defeated, and know that that's okay, that you're in that stage and that you will get through this. And the next stage that comes, and this is the most important stage, this is stage number 5, and that is acceptance. Okay, so acceptance. So this is where this is actually the most freeing stage, okay? And this is the stage where we are now freed from the pain and the emotional turmoil of grieving the loss, whatever the loss was. Whether it's, like I went through this even when I got married, I grieved the loss of my singleness and having my own apartment and doing all my own stuff and all of those kind of things. And there were different stages of going through that stuff, right? So it's not always a big blown out, death of a loved one. But if it is a death of a loved one, this is the stage where you can talk about the person that you lost, and you don't burst out into tears. You can remember the good times, you can remember the good memories of the situation and not be torn apart by it. So this is where you are free from the emotional turmoil. You're no longer held back by the sadness. You're not trying to bargain or change it or try to get it to change back to the old ways. You're not mad about it. You're not in denial about it. You've come to a sense of acceptance. And this is something that when I started my recovery and my healing journey, I did this way back, and I was going to a retreat, and it was all on forgiveness. Now, I was very much in stage 1 and stage 2. I was starting to kind of come out of denial and start to be ticked off about some of the things that had happened to me in childhood, because I was most part in denial. It's like, oh, well, that's just the way it was, and it's okay, I'm over it. I forgive, because that's the logical conclusion, right? That we will get to a state of forgiveness. And I remember somebody telling me about, go look up the 5 stages of grief. And this is where I learned it. And this is how I started to become aware of these stages, and to know that it isn't just the loss or death of a loved one that these stages of grief apply to. We lose so many things in life, and it's not a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. Anytime we go through any kind of change, we have to give up our old ways in order to become that new version of ourselves. So we are going to be going through these 5 stages on some level. And getting to the acceptance stage is the most freeing. It is the best feeling in the world, because now you have moved beyond the pain and the suffering of grief. And now you are on the other side, and you are able to accept. And so in terms of forgiveness, how I equate this of, if somebody has harmed me and they've legitimately harmed me or harmed you, if that's the case, because we're like, how can I possibly get to forgiveness, Tina? They went and did these terrible, awful things to me. And yes, I'm not denying that. And that definitely was the experience. But you know that you have finally gotten to a place of happiness and freedom when you can move through these stages and you can get to acceptance. And that acceptance is not wanting to change what happened. And it's not a matter of saying, oh, it is what it is. That's just the way it is. That's not the case, because that still sometimes ends up having, I didn't deal with the feelings around this, and I'm still in denial. So sometimes when people say, oh, it is what it is, whatever, right? They haven't gone through, if you haven't gone through feeling angry and pissed off about it, if you haven't gone through bargaining and trying to change it and wanting to go back, and if I only did this, and if I only did that, or they only did this, and they only did that, and you haven't gone through the sadness of it, then you haven't gotten to true acceptance. And that still is a chain that will hold you down and drag you back into those stages of grief until you've actually moved through them. And when you do move through them, that is when you are truly free, and that is where you can get to true forgiveness. You cannot get true forgiveness if you haven't gone through these stages. So keep that in mind. And I want you to think of a time. So this is your homework, okay? I want you to think of a time where you went through a loss. What kind of loss was it? Was it loss of a job? Was it, so example, I want to give a job example. A friend of mine, she had lost a job and she went through these stages of grieving, and I remember her sharing with me that after she went through and she got to that acceptance stage, she realized that although it was an extremely painful experience and she felt low and really bad about losing the job, at the end of it, she realized what a gift it was being fired, because it allowed her to free up and pursue things that actually made her happier. So sometimes these things that we end up losing are actually answers to prayers or wishes or goals that we asked for before, and we forgot. And in order to get to that thing that we wanted, we have to let go of these other things, and that can be a painful experience. And so what I want you to know is that you can move through these things, and while you're in it, it's no friggin' fun. Trust me. I have a lot of experience with this, and I went through the last 3 years a huge area of grieving. There were a lot of losses that hit all at once. That was not fun at all, and it was because I was in denial for so long. So all of those had to wake me the fuck up, and that was not a fun experience. So, but I am now, for the most part, not always, like I said, but most part, I'm back in the acceptance stage. So I want you to think of a time or a loss that you've experienced and identify what stage you're in with that loss. And these losses are anything that you have gone through that is painful in your life. And if you're a human that has lived for any length of time, I am sure you've gone through some sort of pain or some sort of loss, and that is okay. That is a natural thing, and not talking about that, not understanding that is something that will keep you stuck in that pain. So let's help you move through these stages of grief by becoming aware of them, and make sure that you comment, A, that you've completed this module, and B, share your takeaways from this training. Was there anything that jumped out at you? When you look back going through those losses, can you see how these stages make sense for you? Can you identify what stages you might be in now with whatever situation that you're going through? So guys, that is training module number 3. I want you to make sure you comment and then move on to training module number 4. And we'll be going through the 5 senses and grounding training exercises. So that is something that is really cool. These are going to be really helpful tools. So stay tuned for training module number 4. Bye.